Yeah. I'd like to shift to, I guess, something that's got a lot more publicity and excitement around it, most since 2017, just this whole world of cryptocurrencies and blockchain, because they are new, like radically new ways of doing things. And the next, it seems to me and to many others, that this century and those that follow will likely be built on these sorts of technologies. So what is your take on distributed ledger technologies as institutions and how they've kind of taken shape? And I guess through the lens of the innovation commons, what do you think were or have been the innovation commons for these things? Has it been Twitter or Reddit or just little forums?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So cryptocurrencies, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, I'm comfortable with just calling this blockchain, but we can argue about exactly what it's called. But this came out of open source software, which is a commons. This came out of the cypherpunk community, which was basically a group of people sharing information about encryption technologies and their application. So the Innovation Commons gave us blockchain technology. That's exactly where this came from. Interestingly, there is no firms at the beginning there. There's no blockchain company or the Bitcoin company. That came much later. There's no intellectual property rights in this space, or very, very few, or those that have tried have mostly failed. So markets didn't work, firms didn't work. There's no government research departments that gave us this. In fact, almost the opposite. So this is one that clearly came out of the commons. The institutional commons gave us this technology. This is just exhibit A of what this does. But it also gave us open source software. It also gave us and open source software is just as much a cultural institution for how we build software. We pool, we share, we have rules about attribution and so on. It's not a public good. It's a commons. There are rules. There is governance. There is ways of policing free riding and fixing error in that system. So first of all, this whole sort of cryptocurrency blockchain technology came out of the Innovation Commons, and nowhere else, right? So thank you, Innovation Commons, for that one. The other so that's the origin story. But I mean, what I think is also interesting here is the nature of blockchain technology. So I've been absolutely obsessed with this for about 3 or 4 years now. I'm co-director of the Blockchain Innovation Hub at RMIT University. We were the world's first social science research institute set up to study blockchain technology from a business school perspective, not from a computer science or perspective. And the reason that me, innovation economist, and my team, which is economists and political scientists and lawyers and anthropologists and sociologists and historians, all got obsessed with this, is that we see this technology. What is interesting about blockchain, the technology, where cryptocurrencies are just one application of that technology, is this is the base layer institutional infrastructure for a digital economy. An industrial economy has base layer institutional infrastructure of government. Government makes the money. Government provides the courts, which then protects property rights, which provides, government enforces rules and laws. Government provides a lot of public goods and public infrastructure. It uses the tax system to fund all of that. It uses a voting mechanism to ensure that this works effectively and well for all of society. But basically, government administration is the base layer infrastructure for an industrial economy. A digital economy doesn't need it to be that way. A digital economy can make its own money. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, is basically private money built as base layer economic infrastructure for a digital economy. Smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain, for instance, is a way of creating a way for me to make contracts and promises with you and have them automatic machine enforced through machine technologies rather than legal technologies in doing that. If we combine digital assets, so we can use tokens, we can point to assets in the real world. We can create property rights in those things. These are tokens or NFTs or other sort of ways of creating asset registries for a digital world. Once we've got that, we can then create organizations. So these are DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. We can start to rebuild groups of people coming together to cooperate about a common project that will involve pooling resources that are tokenized. And we can vote with that. We can have governance mechanisms and hierarchic control through that. So the story I'm sort of representing here, and we can dig into the details of this, but the reason to be excited about blockchain technology, and I emphasize blockchain rather than distributed ledger technology, because distributed ledger technology is the corporate version of that story. Blockchain is the decentralized version of it. This is initial experimentation around building new institutions that are the base layer infrastructure of record keeping of who, what did they agree to, agreement, promises, all of the elements of trust that record who is involved in these transactions or contracts or cooperation, what agreements did they make, promises, contracts, who owns which assets, or which assets are held in common, so we can create common pool assets and so on. But just basic management of ownership, private ownership, collective ownership, group ownership, variations upon that. Promises are the basis of contracting and labor employment and so on. Any way we need to get our agreements into the future, we need to make promises. Promises at the moment, we use lawyers and courts and reputations and identity, and generally we need to know each other quite well, and so which limits the scale of that. So there's a whole lot of economic infrastructure that is basically institutions that we don't even notice anymore because they haven't changed for hundreds of years. We don't go, what is money? Someone needs to invent money. It's been there, right? It's the government provided it. The reason government is involved in money is that government does taxes as well. So long as they're making an agreement about what you need to pay them in, we can use that same thing for our money. We've got a whole lot of economic institutions that we've never thought of as technologies. We've never thought of money as a technology. We've never thought of contracting as a technology. We've never thought of identity as a technology. We've never thought of organizational agreements as a technology. We just call them, you mean a firm, or you mean the government, or you mean money, or you mean the courts. So for hundreds, if not thousands of years, with those institutions, which are technologies, have just had zero technological progress for very long periods of time, for so long that we've forgotten that they are technologies. And then suddenly, 12 years ago, we rediscovered that they were actually technologies because we've got this whole lot of new ways of doing it. So I look at, for me, what blockchain is a whole new realm of technological innovation in institutions. And normally we think of technological innovation as something that happens to things, machines, materials, robots, just stuff in the world. We don't think of technological innovation as things that happens to institutions, social rules for cooperation. What blockchain is the first generation of a whole new realm of technological change that is focused on institutions. This is surprising to everyone because none of us have experienced this in living memory. Going back.
Well, this is the first time it's happened, right? Like nothing's ever really changed.
No
technology has changed.
The last time it happened was, I want to say, around the middle of the 19th century, when we invented calendar time and the work, and when we synchronized clocks. When we all started having the same clock time, we could all turn up to work at the same time, which gave us the workday. The workday gave us this idea of organizing firms around the workday, which gave us modern corporate organization. That then gave us a need for modern finance, and on we go. So, turns out the last time was synchronized clocks, middle century. The first use of that was train timetables. But again, we don't even think of that as a technology. It's just, of course, we have.
It's the time.
Of course, but that's an institution in the sense that coordinates groups of people to cooperate at very low cost. I'm just going to turn up at 9. I know you're going to turn up at 9. We're all going to turn up at 9 and start doing a thing. right? We can do that because of that institutional technology. We've got synchronized time. The time before that was back in the 14th century when we invented double entry bookkeeping, which gave us the joint stock company, which gave us the ability to finance, to have distinction between finance and control of an organization. Single entry bookkeeping, you have to trust someone. Double entry bookkeeping is trustlessness, because we can verify who is responsible for what, because these books have to balance. So that was the last. So in the last 1,000 years, we've kind of had it's happened twice. Now it's happened 3 times. But those previous 2 times it happened, which gave us trustless, gave us the corporation and therefore finance and modern capitalism, whatever, and then synchronized coordination around time, which gave us modern industrial capitalism and the workday and so on. Those were specialist things that gave us a way to organize work. And that's it. It didn't do anything for money or whatever. Synchronizing time was profound for society, but it didn't fundamentally change contracting or whatever. This time, the 3rd time in 1,000 years, which incidentally happened in our lifetime, which is incredible, and it happened just 12 years ago. And I can't believe more economists haven't just dropped everything and go, wow, the most interesting thing in economics in 1,000 years just happened. I'm going to focus on this. But again, it's a story for another time as to why the rest of the profession hasn't seen this. But what just happened was a new general purpose technology for an institutional toolkit just got built, where we can rebuild a whole range of base layer institutions in an economy: money, contracting, organizations, assets, registries, identity, right? And we can build it purely out of software, digitally, on the internet, for a global economy. We can just off it goes. Now that's incredible, because what we thought the internet was a way to send messages to each other, a communications technology. It's amazing at that. We'd never thought that it was also a economic technology to build economic institutions, because we already had those. So at the moment we're living in a weird world where we've got both simultaneously. We've got the old ones that we've perfected over 1,000 years, and they work pretty well, except where they don't, which is, let's say, for 2 billion people on this planet, they do not work very well. Money is horrible in Venezuela. It's barely functioning in Iran. The legal system and contracting is more or less broken across at least 2 continents on Earth. So we've got a whole lot of failures as well. I mean, it works spectacularly well in Australia, in Europe, in North America, in large parts of East Asia, but again, it's costly. We devote a lot of time to politics. We devote a lot of time to media. We have many lawyers in society and accountants. I'm going to say 1 in 3 people living in these societies is devoted to just providing that economic infrastructure, to providing political institutions and government and so on. So the idea that we've now got a technology that we can start to substitute some of that out is mind-blowing. It's still wildly experimental. It's only 12 years old, and really it's only 7 years old. And strictly speaking, we only just figured out NFTs 3 months ago. So and we only got DeFi sorted, experimentally kind of last year. So we're crazy early in this, but we're living at a time where we've got both of these things at the same time. And I think what's going to happen is, in our lifetimes, we're going to start to see more and more of the economy move pure to digital, not because more physical things become digital, this stuff, but because more of our institutions become digital. And that's new. We've never had digital institutions before. We've had digital communication. We used to have physical communication. We used to have to write stuff down and send it to people, and there was physical mail, and there was, so on. And then we digitized that. And now we barely use physical mail at all. It's all digital. But the idea that this could also be true of our money, our courts, our agreements, the social cooperation that we use, the institutions that we use to organize a society, that these things could be built out of a digital base layer, is is still I mean, it's. I know it sounds crazy when you say it out loud. That, we're heading in this direction, but that's what blockchain brings. So that's the significance of blockchain. Is it's a fundamental revolution in the technologies of digital in the ability of digital innovation to move into the space of institutions. The first thing it will do is money, then identity. Money plus identity enables us to do contracting. Money, identity, and contracting enables us to do organizations. Money, identity, contracting, organizations enables us to start to build new types of communities and market systems and exchanges. And on we go. So that's why I'm excited about this. I just think this is an incredibly disruptive technology, and what I'm amazed at is how fast it is moving. Most technological changes take, electricity was, we kind of realized it was there 1802. By a century later, we'd started to get control of motors. It was really the 1950s before we electrified everything. 150 years. Right? We're 12 years in, and we're already on about generation 4 of this technology. Its cycle time is months, not decades. And the reason is that nothing is slowing it down. It's pure open source. There's no intellectual property slowing it down. There's very few organizations. Most regulations and restrictions that I just don't even see it. It's just gone completely around them.
And they're constructed in such a way that they are impervious to a lot of that, unless the government really cracks down. And even then,
in every industry, it's happening around the world. It's happening in open source. And I mean, one of the things that just gives me the most confidence about the crypto space is that you look at it and it's young people. It's smart 21-year-olds going, wow, I've got an amazing idea. And there's nothing stopping them from building it. So you've got this incredible energy and low barriers to entry where just anyone smart enough to figure out an opportunity is able to immediately put it into practice.
And a lot of these people are digital natives, and they've seen, they have grown up with phones in their hands, so they see the analog world and think, "Oh my goodness, this can't be." And I mean, my friend has had a similar experience working in hospitals. There's just paper everywhere, and when you've grown up with technology, and you've just been able to get everything at the drop of a hat. You just type something in, you've got the records there or then.
So what we're seeing then,
aware of the changes that are necessary.
I mean, that's entrepreneurship, but it's also, I mean, what's also striking about it is that what you see very clearly in the crypto space is it's not sort of lone genius sitting by themselves. Now, even Satoshi wasn't that. Satoshi was working with some other cypherpunks, a small group, but that was a community that was cooperating to do that. The thing about the crypto space is that it's not an accident that it's so intensive in Reddit forums and crypto Twitter and Discord channels and those sort of social media channels are such a big part of it. They are the innovation commons that is driving this. People can share ideas, can cooperate, can borrow, steal. There's no real stealing because there's no property to steal. It's all so nothing is slowing it down, and it's happening everywhere. Every country where you've got digital natives, which is more or less everywhere, you've got people going, I wonder what I can do in this space. The capital requirements are minimal. It's all open source. You can just take a project and fork it. We can take something and by tomorrow we can have something new. Again, that's not what the history of innovation looks like. A lot of the history of innovation was secret knowledge and capabilities that required vast amounts of capital to do anything and so on, and very slow mediums of communication that people didn't know in one country what others were doing for long periods of time. So just all the dials are turned up to 11 on this one, which is why as an innovation economist, this is just the most incredible thing to observe. You're watching a supernova up close. We don't normally get to see those. Those are historical events that we study in history, whereas we're living through this one right now. So,
I think your enthusiasm will make a few converts. I've got a few friends who have been a bit, let's just say hesitant, or
No, look,
they had their concerns. But
but the skepticism is just born. I mean, I understand it through the lens of we've never seen an explosion this big up this close before. It's reasonable to believe that this can't possibly be true. And even if, a lot of mistakes will be made, many of the things that we're seeing right now will turn out to be just, wow, that was stupid. But that's true of every technological innovation revolution, is that huge amounts of experimentation, most of it stupid. But the point is to move through those phases as fast as possible, to try everything out, to learn from it, and iterate. And so, I think skepticism is healthy in this space, but the idea that if that skepticism is inhibiting you from that learning process or from then, okay, now we have a problem. And this is where I think there is a significant role for government, or for anything, any sort of, maybe this is a role for philanthropy, but just for ways of bringing in as many people as possible into this conversation, this experimental cooperative endeavor, minimizing the costs of this experimentation. The main thing I'm worried about right now is not what's happening in the blockchain space. What I'm worried about now is is the existing organizations and industries that are threatened by it, that are organizing politically to lobby to have themselves protected. You can see this very clearly in finance, where a lot of the, again, existing organizations that are doing very well, like things as that they are, they do not want competition or new ideas in the space. And rather than competing in the market, they lobby for political protection by raising the costs of things. I just, to me, it's the political side of this that is the concern, not the economics.